I'm currently on the phone with Danielle. She's another musician that reached out about the musician series that's going on. So I'm going to go ahead and give her the opportunity to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Danielle Hollobaugh. I am a singer, songwriter, amateur producer. um, I would consider my genres mainly pop with rock and EDM influence. I am from Florida. I spent a lot of time in LA working on music with people in person, and yeah, I recently shifted my focus to the licensing world. So I do a lot of stuff to pitch to TV, film, commercials, and all that fun stuff. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm up to.
Awesome. Tell me about how you first got into music. How did you first identify with it, and what about it made you want to pursue it further?
Um, I've always been singing. Like my parents signed me up for a theater camp when I was a kid, so music has always been kind of like a part of my life. And I would sing at like my dad's kickboxing events. I would sing the national anthem and sometimes a song during intermission. And then as I got older, I started doing competitions where I would run into people who are kind of doing the music thing more seriously. And um, so I signed up for my first showcase, and the preparation process for that showcase really like kind of threw me into the life of a musician for the first time. And I realized that I love this and I want to keep doing it as a career because it feels amazing.
Okay, so you kind of mentioned there that you were singing the national anthem and stuff for sporting events.
hmm Yeah.
When did you also in tandem to decide to pick up an instrument?
I don't really play. I mean I produce like with the I play the MIDI keyboard.
Okay.
I can play a little bit of keyboard.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood because you said that you're a singer songwriter, so I just attributed the fact that there was instrumentation in there as well.
Oh yeah. No, it's actually pretty crazy because like everything kind of just pops into my head, and I just have the instrumentation. It's actually the first thing that usually comes to me. So even though I don't play, I'm a composer more than anything when it comes to writing.
Okay, but you still, with whatever DAW that you're using, you're throwing
Yeah.
out the MIDI roll, putting down the
hmm
instrumentation and everything.
Exactly.
Okay, and then like,
I can lay my stuff down.
sure. So in a lot of those instances, when people do use MIDI to do their like writing and composing, they're kind of just drag and dropping, pre-made progressions and like loops and things in there. Is that the kind of thing that you're doing, or are you kind of going in there note for note, writing it all out, performing it? Just you're doing it via MIDI.
It's a combination of both. If I can find a loop that's close enough, great. But usually I have to go in and I'm way too picky for loops.
Mm-hmm.
So I usually will program them myself or play. I've got a MIDI controller, so I can get the chords and stuff like that.
Sure. So, would you consider yourself to be more of like the solo singer songwriter type, or do you also work with other musicians?
Um, as a performer, I've always been kind of a solo artist. As a session musician, I would say definitely still a solo artist, but I've collaborated with a lot of people, especially going into licensing. I have several different writing partners and um, production partners that I work with, and it's a great time.
Okay. And so, growing up in that environment, how did you get
Mhm.
to the point where, you wanted to start pursuing the licensing side of it, and as well as, putting out your own creative stuff, doing your solo work, and then licensing portions of that out?
So it kind of was a happy accident. My producer that I found in LA and just like made an incredible connection with, he was working in licensing, and there were just a few instances where I would bring a song to him, and he's like, I hear licensing potential. If we can just tweak a few things. There was actually
Hmm.
one song on my first album where I came in and he had just like he heard my melodies and like let's go in this different direction. And I was like, no, like it kind of freaked me out. I was like, no way, we're not doing. But then we came to like a compromise where I recorded my version and then we recorded the licensing version.
Hmm.
And that actually ended up being my very first placement, the licensing version. And so I kind of attribute working with him um, to my advantages in the licensing world because he really mentored me in that sector, and it's great because I like being in the studio more than anything. So I
Hmm.
get to create and I get to um, still put things out there with my voice and not have to like worry too much about the promo side of things. Just kind of like the pitching. Obviously, pitching is important and that kind of thing.
So you kind of answered my question there slightly, but I was going to ask, what type of licensing is it? Is it, you're pitching your songs to other bands for them to play, or is it like music and TV and movies?
Yeah. So primarily, I have done some writing camps for label artists in the last year, and that's been a really fun experience. Just being able to meet other songwriters.
Hmm.
But primarily, like when we talk about my goals and like what I want to do, definitely more TV, film, commercial, because it's just really fun to hear
Hmm.
your own song in a commercial or a trailer. Like that was just wild for the first
Sure.
time.
Absolutely. And that's a completely valid way to participate in the music industry as well. I know there's a lot
Yeah,
of
for sure.
there's a lot of people that might take issue with that just because of, whatever their own ego might speak to them to say that, they need to, be the master and owner of whatever material. But I think licensing to music, TV, movies, that's great.
Well, the thing is, you still own your masters. Depending on the company you work with, um, you retain the rights to your music. They just kind of like they'll take a cut of the royalty if they play something, that kind of thing. But yeah,
Right.
I never
I,
had to give up my masters or
I suppose
anything.
I meant it in the vein of, they think it should be, purely something that
Yeah,
they're performative and all of that.
there's definitely a difference between the artist side and the licensing side of things. Um, it's definitely like you approach everything differently, and you have just different angles that you look at everything.
Hmm.
So
Well, like
I
you
get that for
mentioned,
sure.
you did one version of your song that was for the album, and then another one, a version that was for licensing.
Hmm.
Um, at what point do you kind of make that separation and say, okay, this one's going on the album, this one you can just license it wherever, it doesn't really matter where it goes?
I think that's where it gets a little tricky because really there's a market for anything with all the new streaming channels constantly coming out. The content is just endless. So I really do still approach things from an artist perspective,
Hmm.
um, because there's a place for it. And so, yeah, everything that I put out is still like totally me and still, it's not, there are some times where I'll see a brief, like looking for a song that says this, and then I'll write to that. So there is that.
Hmm.
But in general, when I'm just creating, it's got to be something that authentically speaks to me and that I connect with.
Sure. So you mean like when you get like the call sheet or whatever that says what they're looking for,
Hmm.
you'll write to that when that's what you're
Yeah,
looking to do, as opposed to something more expressive that you would put onto an actual LP or album or whatever.
right. And a lot of times it goes hand in hand because I actually had a situation where I got a placement and they wanted to put the song on a Spotify playlist and the song was not out. So I had to rush release it. And um, that kind of was a crazy mess because like, the distributor created a new profile. So I didn't get any
Hmm.
exposure from it. And yeah, so unless you're signed with an exclusive library, which is great because like they put more effort into finding your songs. Like if you can get into one, that's awesome. But um, and even then, some of them are okay with it. Generally, you can release the songs you make for licensing. So I like to do that whenever possible, just to avoid that same situation.
Sure. And what would be some of the libraries that you think are more reputable than? Because I know there's a bunch out there. Some of them are kind of sketchy. Some of them are very good. In your opinion, what do you think are the good ones to work with?
Um, I am in Atrium Music. I really like that. I'm also in Click and Clear, which is a sports library. I like doing a lot of like alternative rock type of stuff. So I'm having a lot of fun kind of creating things for them. Um, what else? I'm blanking. Crucial Music is another good one. Um, yeah, those are the top three that come to. Lab Hits is another one.
Okay.
Um, they work a little bit differently than a library, but it's still a cool thing to be a part of.
Sure. So going back to your original stuff, the stuff that you're creating for your own artistic
hmm
expression to put out there, um, where are you with that, and what are you looking to accomplish with it?
Right now, I'm building my 2022 release schedule. So I'm recording things to be putting out throughout this year. I have a couple lined up for the first, and I always make sure to have plenty in the pipeline so that I'm never like scrambling for something to release.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm just kind of building things up and gonna release one every few weeks or so. So it's gonna be, yeah, a lot of new music this year as usual.
Awesome. Definitely seems to be the way that, more and more people that I talk to are leaning towards of doing, the consistent releases throughout the year rather than,
Yeah,
saving it all up for like an EP and doing it that way.
yeah, out of sight, out of mind. So I try not to go too long without having something for people.
Yeah, definitely. So what are some of your favorite memories from the period of time that you've been working in music?
Really, the first time that I traveled to record a song, I won a trip to Phoenix to record a single, and then it was just like a 2 day studio intensive. Like I was just in heaven, being around all those people, being with with all the equipment and all that cool stuff. That was a huge memory for me. I would say my first showcase, just because like the people I met in the process, I was 13 years old, and to this day I still keep in touch with my voice coach that I met and my photographer from those days. So um, that was really memorable because it gave me a taste of what that life is like. And just, I would say, moving to Los Angeles and just those first few days, just taking in, like, wow, I'm really here in the place I've always dreamed of being.
Hmm.
So I would say that'd be my top three, but there's just a lot of incredible. There was a time where I was, I've always been involved, like, I've always sent in demos to my music. So I've always composed my music, but when I wasn't so involved in the production, the memories of me leaving the studio and coming back a few weeks later to hear the finished product was just like the magic. I do miss that magic just because it was so exciting, like walking in the door and just sitting down for the big debut of the song.
Hmm.
And like now it's just like, all right, here's the mix. What do you think of it? So
Yeah, everything does seem to happen a bit faster these days, the way that
yeah.
communication has moved.
hmm
So, what are some of the social media links that you have where people can take a listen to what you're doing and check you out?
Everything is Danielle H Music. So Facebook.com/Danielle H Music, Instagram/Danielle H Music, TikTok, which I'm trying to learn. um, Danielle H Music. So YouTube, Danielle H Music. They're all the same. So it's easy.
Excellent. And so I always like to give the person that I'm interviewing the opportunity to put out their last word. So just a message that you feel you resonate with.
I don't know, it's cliche, but I mean, truly, never give up and never let anybody else tell you that you can't do something, because if you have a goal or something you love doing, you should pursue it to whatever degree you want.